when I watch the game and I try to watch it from the lens of saying, here's the game, and the game is just going to evolve, right? You watch the guys in the 60s, and then you watch them in the set, and you just watch the game evolve. But you know what's been very significant as I've been watching the game, because I get really upset when I hear this generation, talk about the previous generation. And I always get upset when I hear the previous generation say, hey, talk about this generation. It's like, why? Like, why are we trying to? It's like, okay, let's just look at it for what it is.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what's really amazing when you watch the game mode? Okay, one, the rules have changed. Okay, so when you're making these comparisons, it's not really a comparison because the rules have changed. So the game in the 80s and the 90s is a totally different game than what you're watching now. But you know what's really significant is the refereeing has really changed.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I was watching this highlight of Allen Iverson, and it was amazing for me to watch it. And the reason what made me watch it more was because my youngest son now he wants to learn how to dribble, and we were doing, he's 8, so we're just doing the basic ball handling dribbling. He just wants to learn how to dribble, and he was at basketball camp and he was showing me here, and he wanted to practice and doing these things. But then I was watching Allen Iverson dribble, and I thought, what an advantage it was to be able to like kind of carry the ball when you're dribbling.
Mm-hmm.
So I started watching Allen Iverson, and then I went and watched the Dallas Mavericks, and I said, wow, Kyrie, he carries the ball. And then I went and watched Jamal Crawford. I was like, that's about the time it really started changing when Jamal Crawford and these guys kind of got in. And then I started watching Tim Hardaway, and I was like, oh, wow, he was dribbling on top of the ball. And then I was just watching all of the players, and I thought, Mo, to myself, if you could carry the ball like the guards do today, that's a huge advantage when you're
Mm-hmm.
playing. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, Mo, the previous generation wasn't allowed to play that way because of the refereeing of the game. The biggest change has been the interpretation of the rules of the game, Mo. Like carrying, you'll see it called every now and then. But Mo, you weren't allowed to do that in the previous generations. And how different would it be if you were able to play carrying the ball?
Mm-hmm.
By the rules of that era, that was a carry. Now, the referees, Mo, now I want to start talking to the referees because I want to know how did the interpretation of just that one action that changed the game probably more than anything. And if you were allowed to do how these guys are doing, like Bo, of course you can do things that you couldn't do because you weren't allowed to do that just by the rules themselves. So, I think the referees, Mo, I want to get the referees on the show because
Mm-hmm.
how did that happen? Like, I don't remember it being like a thing like we're just not gonna carry it, but it just I remember one of those. It kind of gradually that was just kind of how it evolved. Where suddenly now when you watch like for instance Luka Doncic, like no one was allowed to dribble that way.
Yeah. The game has changed.
The
The
game,
game has
the
changed.
game.
That's what we
What
can say.
I don't know if the game has changed. I think the interpretation and how we enforce the rules have changed.
Mm.
I think the players have always pushed the limits of the rules, but it's just like Akeem Olajuwon. Like you couldn't call travel on him every time.
Mm.
Reggie Miller
It's like I saw a clip of Dominic Wilkins do Euro step and they called him for a travel.
travel
And now every time down, you're going to see a guy try Euro.
you know what I
Like,
mean?
okay.
Like Ginobili, I was just thinking like, God, Ginobili probably would have gotten away with that in that era. The Euro step.
Yep.
I mean, they're just things, you know what I mean? I mean, when AI came in with the crossover, I remember vividly Every coach said that was a carry when he came in with that, because that was a huge advantage, you know? So that would be interesting to just, listen, that's the way it is. I'm cool with that. However, I think the interpretation of the rules and how they are called really, I think it gives some players an advantage and some players, it puts them at a disadvantage. And I think the defense currently now is at a disadvantage in the way the rules are called today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good for the offense. I mean, that's awesome for the offense.